do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Okay, so let's start with that quickly before we get into today's tough question. Do you think the average person cares if Nico plays against UTEP?
And you're asking me?
Yeah, well, I'm asking you on behalf of Tennessee's fan base.
So do I think the average Tennessee fan cares?
Yes.
Yes, I think the average Tennessee fan wants Nico Iamaleava to play versus UTEP.
Okay. I'm about 60-40 and I disagree with you on that part. Now, I definitely may disagree with you on today's tough question, but as far as do you care, I think the fans that go to the stadium and they get all bundled up, I think they want to see him star. I think at the end of the day, they say it's UTEP. And I'm sorry, but some of these games carry the excitement of an NFL preseason game. So it's today's tough question. It's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And Dylan, I'm going to get to that blowout win thing. Hang tight.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Let me lay out some factors real quick. Nico was what heading into the Georgia game? Banged all to hell, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, we think the concussion's fine, and typically those go away, and they're not like a high ankle sprain where they continue to bother you. You're either cleared or you're not, but the second one is a little bit more likely to happen once you've had one. We've seen that in the NFL with Tua Tagovailoa. You also have the shoulder, which I think is fine, the left shoulder, but still. Now, so far on our poll question, do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Yes, I want to see him start. 77% of the vote. No, it's UTEP. 21% of the vote. So let me go to my argument. And really, this is one that struck me this morning. Okay, number one, you don't risk getting him hurt. I don't think he's going to get hurt against UTEP, but if you really do run some RPOs in your regular offense, he's going to get hit some. It's a football game, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you do risk getting him hurt, and I don't think he's nearly as big as he's going to be next year. Number two, Tennessee's going to win by 30 if Gaston Moore goes out there and starts. Okay, so you said something, Dylan, that I want to address. We need blowout wins these next two games. I think you're one of our best posters, Dylan, but I think you're 100% wrong. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to watch this game. I think they'll look at the final score, and with Nico, maybe it's 50-something to 6. With Gaston Moore, maybe it's 40-something to 6. But either way, Tennessee coming off a loss is mad, and they're going to come out and hammer UTEP. I don't care if Navy Schuler is the quarterback. Maybe not as bad as they would with Nico. Now, I am going to give you my one saving grace that you would probably want to argue. And, Caleb, I don't have a problem with Navy Schuler playing. Gaston Moore is also a senior. So let him get his bouquet of flowers. That is not my major reasoning, but it is something I would think about. All the College Football Playoff Committee cares about is your one-loss record. Please take a second and click the thumbs up button. Whether or not you agree with that, make sure you're subscribed. But, Caleb, do you really think there's anything Tennessee can do against UTEP to help their college football standing? It's all the other games. I don't care if it's 120-3. Then they would look at Josh Heupel and they would say, you're just running up the score against a lesser opponent. I have no faith in this College Football Playoff Committee. If you went out there and looked super crisp, and I knew that every single College Football Playoff Committee member was watching, then I'm with you. Yeah, play Nico. Look fantastic. Play him the entire game if you want to, but I wouldn't even run him out there for the starting lineup. I wouldn't even dress him because I think Tennessee could win this game easily, Caleb, without Nico Iamaleava. So he can prepare for the next game, a better than you think Vanderbilt team. Now, that's my other argument, Caleb. If this was Vanderbilt of old, no, go ahead and run out 50-plus points both times. But Vanderbilt's not a gimme win. They beat Alabama like Tennessee. So your take, Caleb, because I'm going to tell you, I feel strongly you shouldn't even play Nico. This is just like an NFL preseason game, like the fourth one, where they only have two now. But remember when they had the fourth one and none of the starters played?
Yes.
Like essentially all you needed to watch about the preseason was what? It was the first quarter of the third preseason game. This is the fourth preseason game. Caleb's take brought to you by Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right. Am I crazy, Caleb?
You're not totally off. And I'm first going to...
You can tell, by the way, when we come up with our topics at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting and when something hits me, like on the drive over to my studio. So Caleb has kind of gotten thrown a curveball a little bit.
Well, okay. I feel like I'm violating all of my beliefs because I am one of those people that is not, I'm sorry, I hate that every game is equally important. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm the one who said throw the SEC championship game. I'm the one who touted and praised Rick Barnes for throwing the SEC tournament last year. So I'm not one that says, you got to keep things going. But I think you have to play Nico this weekend. And I think there's a few reasons you have to play him. You got to keep your offense in a rhythm. Look, the cadences are different from quarterback to quarterback. It's one thing to do what I say and try to get rest and not play. It's another thing to play for the entire first team to play with a totally different quarterback one week. Then they could be totally thrown off a rhythm when they do play Vanderbilt next week, which is a big game that honestly they can't be thrown off rhythm when they're playing. So I think that could I think that could create more bad habits than you're willing to let on than you're willing to admit. Because if they spend a whole game playing with Gaston Moore, then the next week they'll kind of be used to Gaston Moore's cadence, Gaston Moore's the way he does everything. And that could really throw them off when Nico comes back in for Vanderbilt. And they need Nico for Vanderbilt. So I think you have to play Nico Iamaleava for that, at least for a half. The other part about this is I am a big believer that part of getting back from injury, a key part of getting healthy from injury is actually just playing. And so if Nico was banged up last week, if he's healthier this week, I say still play him against UTEP. And you got to get his feet a little wet. I've told you this 1,000 times. Peyton Manning, you bring up NFL preseason. In 2012, when Peyton Manning came back from the 4 neck surgeries, there was talk of holding him out of all of preseason and just getting him to start the season with Denver his first year. He actively went to the coaches and said, no, I need to not just play that one typical preseason game. I need to play 3 of the 4 because I got to get hit. I got to get hit. I got to get back in rhythm. And if I don't get hit, then I'm going to be way too rusty to start the season. And
okay. Time out real quick. He has been hit. The concussion protocol. I mean, I hate to say minor concussion because that's not a PC thing to say, but this was not one where like Tua Tagovailoa could barely get to his feet. So, and I thought it was a little bit shady how Chris Fowler said he looks a little wobbly coming off the field against Georgia. No, he didn't.
A lot of things Chris Fowler said were shady in that game.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst broadcasted games of all time. And I'm not trying to sit there and throw shade on Chris Fowler.
Yeah, normally I like him. I feel like he's kind of become a part of the machine, so to speak. And the SEC is obviously a part of the machine, and ESPN owns the playoffs. So, listen, that whole concussion narrative, it was great for clicks on our site. It was great to talk about, but he practiced all week, I was told, according to multiple sources. There was no way that he wasn't playing on Saturday unless he slipped out of bed, hit his head on Saturday morning, and then didn't pass concussion protocol. So, to me, his feet are wet. Now, you wouldn't say that he needs to go out there and simulate a full game if this were a bye week.
You're saying I wouldn't say he needs to go. No, but
that's the same thing. That's what UTEP is. That's what college football has created.
Yes, but at the same time, a bye week, it's twofold here. That's just one of them. You play UTEP, you are simulating somewhat of a game against UTEP. There is such thing as a tune-up game. Everybody does it. And the other point of this is that, again, the Gaston Moore cadence. You don't want a team to get used to playing with Gaston Moore for a full game.
Okay.
That will throw them off when they play Vanderbilt on the road, where Nashville, I don't know if Tennessee's going to have a home field advantage in Nashville this year the way they typically do.
They still will. They still will. Let me ask you this. And it's brought to you by Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, and they have the 6-to-1 Brazilian cocoa coffee that I drink, and it's fantastic, unbelievable, and their food is just tremendously good. What's more likely? Nico goes out there and plays, and like Kent State, what was the final score of that game? 70-3?
71-0.
Okay.
Put some respect on Tennessee's name.
Yeah, my bad. 71's a big number, right? Like if you're not even paying attention to the game and you see that on SEC football finals, you're like, whoa, that's a big number. Okay, so maybe the college football playoff committee says, whoa, that's a big number. What's more likely is that they say, whoa, that's a big number, and Tennessee gets in. Everything else goes chalk this weekend, which right now Tennessee would be the first team out. Or that game gets chippy because you're running up the score on UTEP and they start taking some nasty, dirty shots. We've seen that happen before where Josh Heupel's blown people out and things have gotten chippy, Caleb. And I think the worst thing you want is somebody to take a shot at a knee and one of your key players aren't able to go against Vanderbilt. The more I think about it, guys, I think playing Nico in this day and age, and this is so anti what I believe about football that I can't even believe I'm saying it, but I feel really, really strongly about it. The question now, do you care if Nico plays against UTEP? Yes, I want to see him star. No, it's UTEP. Now I'm going to change the tenor of the question. Would it help the Vols if he didn't play against UTEP? So Caleb, you give me your final thoughts on this, and I want to get to sort of the blame pie when it comes to Tennessee's offense.
You're asking if it would help the Vols against UTEP if he didn't play, or help the Vols overall throughout the scope of the season?
Scope of the season.
Oh no, it wouldn't help the Vols in the scope.
I
of the
still
season.
think he's an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I think Nico needs to play. Nico needs to play a half. He needs to keep somewhat in rhythm, and the offense needs to be in rhythm with him and his cadence. I think it would be crazy to not play Nico Iamaleava. Not because I think UTEP is important. I'm telling you guys up front, I'm not one of those guys where like every game should be treated the same. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. I think the coaches should not be wasting their time preparing for UTEP this week, and I doubt they are. But I do think you have to keep your quarterback in rhythm, and you don't want to get them out of rhythm by playing with another quarterback whose cadence is totally different. This is why we all have agreed that most of the time alternating quarterbacks doesn't work, Dave. Half the reason alternating quarterbacks doesn't work is the offense is used to responding to a certain quarterback a certain way because of how they call the plays at the line of scrimmage. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And how do you get in any rhythm with that if you're alternating quarterbacks? And it's the same if you start Gaston Moore for a full game. It could cause a problem.
Well, you and I are as opposite ends of the spectrum as we could possibly be on this one. And I know I'm going against everything that I've said for the past 25 years, but I just wouldn't, I wouldn't play him.
Now, here's where you might have me. If you want to do it to just show up college football for the fact that we still have to watch these UTEP games because the college football playoff is basically rewarding teams for playing these games, maybe you got me. Because, I mean, let's be honest. It's we'll talk about the rankings, but based on Indiana being in the top 5, the college football playoff is very basically, are they not saying to every Power 5 team, Dave, now play every patsy you can possibly play out of conference?
Okay, let me ask you another question. Because here's what Danny White wants. He wants 3 patsy non-conference games, right?
Correct.
And the college football playoff is saying that's the way to do it. But he also wants to sell tickets. And I've noticed that more tickets have become available even before just on Facebook, social media, Mississippi State, and on and on and on. But if Josh Heupel is talking to Danny White and he goes, I'm thinking about sitting Nico. Do you think Danny White would veto him? Say, no, you have to put on a good show, the show that people want to see. That'd be Like me going to see Guns N' Roses back in 1992, and Axl took the night off. That would suck. It'd be awful, wouldn't it?
It would.
If I went out there and sat in the cold and you didn't play Nico, that's a different subset of fans.
Well,
The ones who are sitting at home and get the big picture.
Let me tell you why. You know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. But we're just acknowledging, because we're going to talk about it later, that Dave's just acknowledging I was right about the college football playoff. He's acknowledging that it's devalued the regular season so much that you should sit your starting quarterback for a game. Okay.
No,
Dave is calling for load management, which the NBA does.
I am calling for load. I think this is
that never existed.
This is a unique situation. I think this is a unique situation. I don't think it's across the board.